starting out with the AL East, I just want to make this disclaimer at first. There's so much good AL East teams. Like, there's so much good AL East teams. And it's a shame that one of them might not make the playoffs, which I think that could happen, but I think that 4 teams could make the playoffs. I am going to make playoff predictions at the end of this video, but just a little bit of a spoiler warning, there could be 4 AL East teams that make the playoffs because of the expanded playoffs, of course. Now, I know that might sound crazy, but I feel like all 4 teams except for the last place team, which is the Baltimore Orioles, but we'll get to that later. But I think all 4 teams that are good in the AL East are all amazing. And if I put your team in 4th place or 3rd place, that doesn't mean that they're bad. I think all 4 of them have the ability to get 90 wins or 80 wins or something, which is probably not going to happen because 4 teams from the same division getting 90 wins is very, very unlikely. But if it could happen, it would be this year's AL East. All teams are stacked, have star power, and while some have flaws, I think that this division is easily the best in baseball. And in 5th place, I've already told you, it's definitely the Baltimore Orioles. Now, I like how their rebuild is going. They sold off a lot of stuff, and their prospects are coming up. Grayson Rodriguez and DJ Hall, I'm really excited for them because I think they're amazing pitching prospects, one of the best, and they should get either caught up this year or next year. I think they're going to be amazing. But for now, they do have John Means, who is really, really good. John Means posted a 3.62 ERA, and he was definitely the best. He's still pretty young, but he's very, very good. I believe he threw a no-hitter, and I think he's not the greatest player in the world, but I do think because of all the strikeouts and the ERA and everything that he definitely could be a strong contributor to the Orioles if they make a run in the future. He could be like a mid-rotation type guy. And they also have Jordan Lyles, who's solid. I wouldn't want him to be your second best pitcher, but he's definitely a 4th or 3rd, or he's a solid option. I think that's going to make their pitching bearable, but the rest of their pitching isn't really that good. It's going to be the same old crappy pitching that's still going to be probably almost towards the bottom of the league. It's improved, but it's still not that good because Bruce Zimmerman, Keegan Allen, and Dean Kremer, and they don't really have much depth after that. And I think that they're all they just embody how bad the Orioles pitching has been, because they're probably going to have over 4 ERA, and they're going to give up a lot of home runs. And just having 2 good or decent pitchers is going to get you murdered, especially in the AL East, and all 3 of those pitchers are going to be pretty bad. But top 2 are pretty good, but none of them are really ace with it. John Means could be, but I think their pitching is just going to be such atrocious, which is why I don't think, even if they do have a couple stars on offense, they're not going to be that good. But the Orioles, Cedric Mullins is a corner piece for the future. I think he's very underrated. He should have made the All-Star game. I think he did, yeah. But yeah, his on-base percentage, his hitting, how much he walks. Austin Hayes is the left fielder of the future. He has almost an 800 OPS. Very good. His fielding is amazing because like people get wrapped up in Moustakas, Mullins, and all their other outfielders, but Austin Hayes is still young, fast, athletic, and exciting. He's their left fielder of the future. He almost hit for 300. And Trey Mancini, of course, came back from that colon cancer. Very, very inspirational, but he was an all-star and is going to continue to be an all-star. I don't think he might get out of his prime soon, but like I still think he's amazing. Ryan Moustakas, as I said, he's also very good. I think he made the all-star game out. I didn't do as much research on the Orioles. And they definitely do have a lot of players. Anthony Santander's decent. Ruffin Lindor could be a good bench guy, but he's a starter. But other than those guys, the rest of their hitters, kind of like the pitchers, that except for those 2, are kind of bad. Because it's kind of like the pitchers. Like, they have a couple stars, but the rest of them are awful. And there's just no depth when it comes to the Orioles. They have a couple stars, but then the rest of them are like pretty bad. Santander or Odor aren't that bad, but Urias, Gritas, Nottingham, Mateo, DJ Stewart, they're all kind of bad. DJ Stewart could be decent, but I don't think he's that good. And yeah, like they have some pieces to build around, which is they're showing positive signs for a rebuild. They're having a couple unexpected resurgence, overachieving. They got young cornerstones to build around early that came out of nowhere that didn't really have to pay that much for, and they still got a strong farm system, and hopefully their manager is going to be good. And in the bullpen, they still had Dylan Tate. He's pretty decent. Perez is okay. Their bullpen is still not that good at all, and their bullpen's still going to be terrible. They have a couple guys, but their bullpen is again a flaw, and it's going to be terrible. So they have a couple corner pieces to build around, but still not that good. Fourth in the division, I have the Boston Red Sox. I know Red Sox fans are going to be mad, but I still think this team could get 90 wins. The only reason why I don't say for sure they are is because of the division that they play in. But the Boston Red Sox are still very, very, very good. I'll go over their flaws later. I'm going to talk about their batting order. Kiki Hernandez is a very underrated fielder. Very, very good. And I think the problem last year was their pitching was inconsistent with injuries and their bullpen collapsed. But this year, their defensive, you can forget about their defensive issues. They did lose Hunter Renfroe, which is going to be a big loss, but Kiki Hernandez is back. Alex Verdugo, hopefully he stays healthy. Trevor Story's an amazing defensive player, which he moves Bogarts, which people think he's a great fielder. He is, but not that good at shortstops. The stats and metrics say that. He can move to second base. Rafael Devers is still at third. Hopefully he improves. On defense, Jackie Bradley Jr., he's probably one of the best defensive fielders of this decade. Could play in the field from time to time. He can be a pretty good utility guy off the bench whenever you need somebody like that. And Christian Vasquez, I don't think he's going to be their catcher of the future. I don't think he's that good. He's a really good defensive catcher, but I think his offensive production is kind of bad. And yeah, I don't really think he's going to be their catcher of the future. But the defensive stuff is really good. Rafael Devers did improve. JD Martinez, hopefully he's going to stay the DH. But I think their defense is going to be just solid enough, because last year a bunch of their pitchers' numbers were inflated because of how bad the fielding was. Look at Eduardo Rodriguez. The stats say if he didn't all those fielding errors and unlucky and good competition stuff, he would have had like a 350 or a 370 ERA, which is why he got signed big time by the Tigers. Christian Arroyo, I don't think he's that good. He's pretty good, but he's not that good, and sometimes he could play the infielder, but there's only like 2 or 3 guys that are bad at fielding on this team. I really think this team's fielding is going to get a lot better. Verdugo and Hernandez and possibly Duran is going to be, or Jackie Bradley Jr. is going to be amazing, and I think it's going to make life easier for the pitchers, which going over to the pitch and staying on the offensive side, though, I'm going to go over their hitting now. Trevor Story, people said that he had a down year. I don't think so. He was expecting to be out of Colorado. He was mad, so I don't think he was trying as hard, even though it was a contract year. Plus, he still had a pretty good year though. His OPS was still amazing. He still had a really good on-base percentage. He still hit over 30 homers, which is always what you want, and I think now that he's on a championship contender, even though I have them finishing 4th, I still think he's gonna be even better. Bogarts and Devers they could both be faces of the franchise. You can argue either way, both superstars. And I think Verdugo, if he stays healthy, he can be a superstar. Kiki Hernandez is underrated. JD Martinez, also you can argue is a face. Other than that, I do think the rest, those 3 or 4 like spots in their defense, I do think it is a little bit of like who's gonna fit where, kind of like last year. Because like, do we want Jackie Bradley Jr. at left field or Duran? Do we really want Christian Arroyo to be like at first base? Do we want Dalbec to be at first base, or do you want Duran? Like, there's a couple spots like that, but I think their defense is gonna be fine. Disregard what I just said, actually. And I think Christian Vasquez is not that good. Duran has promise, but I think he needs to show more. Arroyo's a pretty good utility guy, but he's not that. But I don't think he's gonna be that good if he's in the starting lineup. I don't know. But yeah, as long as Verdugo stays healthy, Trevor Story doesn't underperform, Rafael Devers doesn't regress in the fielding, and Bogarts keeps it up, I think they're going to be pretty good. And now I do think they either need Vasquez, Dalbec, or Duran to step up, one of those guys. But as long as those stars perform and they have maybe 1 or 2 guys step up, they're going to be good. But if I had 2 or 3 guys like that I just named that in the starting lineup, then their bench is not that good. Jackie Bradley Jr. is a pretty good utility guy off the bench, but I think the depth, because a lot of the AL East teams are good from top to bottom. Look at the Rays, look at the Yankees, look at the Blue Jays. They got guys on their bench that could be really good starters. And the Red Sox don't have that. They have a couple uncertainties, and I think I don't know, just their depth. The bottom of their lineup's going to cost them in close games. And yeah, I just think that. But I think their offense isn't the problem. They got amazing guys that are all just amazing. I think that for those 2 or 3 guys, I think their stars are going to more than make up for it, especially in Fenway Park. In the rotation, like the numbers are inflated, I think a lot of it is to be determined. I think it's going to be make or break. Evaldi's is really, really good, had a 3.75 ERA, and his FIP fielding independent ERA is a really, really large gap, 279 to 375, just to show how inflated the numbers are. And Evaldi's still pretty young. He's still got a lot of time left. He has nasty stuff, and I think he could be an ace going. Yeah. Nick Pivetta is a solid third option, but I think that you need more than that. He is a very, very solid third option, and I won't complain about it. He had just over a 4 ERA, a lot of strikeouts, pretty good WAR. Nick Pivetta is still not like amazing, which in this division you need amazing players. I'm nitpicking a lot with the Red Sox because the Yankees, Rays, and Blue Jays are all fantastic. And after that, you got a 42-year-old Rich Hill, I guess, Michael Waka, and Chris Sale, which I'm going to talk about later. And Garrett Whitlock could be a starter. But yeah, now I'm going to talk about Chris Sale to make or break. He did show a lot of signs last year with the Red Sox that he was going to return to form, but at the end of the day, he did struggle a bit. We don't know if he's going to be in the bullpen or not. He's probably going to be a starter. But as a lot of people are saying right now, their starting pitching rotation rests on if Sale can be elite. If he can be elite, that gives them the ace that they need. Evaldi doesn't have as much pressure. Pivetta can be knocked down the 4th. Rich Hill can be 5th. So then Michael Wacha, I don't know if I'm saying his name correct, can't be the 5th pitcher because, again, the reason why I have them not doing that good is because the pitching is so uncertainty. I don't really care about them not having as much depth on offense. The pitching is so uncertain. You only have 2 for sure good guys, which Evaldi is good and Pivetta is okay. You can't have an okay guy being your second best pitcher. And I'm not gonna bank that the Red Sox are I'm not gonna put my trust in if a pitcher that's been injured for a while and that struggled at the end of the season is gonna magically return back to form. And even if Chris Sale does return back to form, their pitching still isn't perfect. We don't know if Pivetta can keep it up. We don't know if Rich Hill is gonna regress because he is 42. And they don't really have a 5th or a 6th or a 7th guy because for injuries. And Garrett Whitlock, again, I'm not gonna bet that Garrett Whitlock's gonna be a good starter or that Chris Sale's gonna be good. If they are good, that's great. They're probably gonna finish 3rd then, but still, their pitching doesn't have much depth and their offense doesn't have that much depth. And there's too much uncertainties with their pitching. Their bullpen is really good. I really like Whitlock. He's pretty good. Barnes is really good. They both did amazing. I'm really excited for them. Tanner Houck is pretty good, and I think that their starting pitching can pitch long enough that the bullpen will be okay. Again, they lack depth again. Taylor, Whitlock, Barnes, he's pretty good. Hernandez is pretty good, but the rest of them aren't as good. The Red Sox need a little bit more depth, but they do have the star power on offense, and they do have just good enough pitching to maybe make them 90 wins, but still finish 4th. 3rd, I've got the Rays. Now, you'd want me to finish them 1st, but again, the teams ahead of them are just a little bit better, but they still got a bunch of returning players. They still got a lot of returning guys. Shane McClanahan is very, very good ace, pretty good pitcher. Corey Kluber returned back to form, even though I wouldn't want him being your 2nd or 3rd best pitcher. Sham Baz, he's going to be amazing, even though he's pretty inexperienced. He showed glimpses. He's one of the best pitching prospects out there that you can get. Usmans is solid. Luis Patino, again, is another pretty good young guy. And again, I'd say with the Red Sox, I wouldn't bet that their young guys are going to be good, but I do bet because the Rays are so good at developing players, and they're probably going to make a trade mid-season. They kept most of their guys. I think they're all set. They did lose Nelson Cruz, but yeah, but the thing is, the Rays are always great in the regular season, but they always kind of fail in the postseason. So, plus they were pretty close with the Red Sox and Yankees last year, so they just got the teeny just a little bit worse because they lost Nelson Cruz, just a little bit. But then they balanced that out with Kluber, so they're basically staying the same. In the Yankees and Red Sox that were right on their tail and stuff, well, the Yankees got even better, even better. And the Red Sox too, like they're pretty good. I don't think the Red Sox are gonna overpass the Rays. Still, they could be pretty close. And the Blue Jays that were on the Rays tail, they got a whole lot better. And they're developing players. I don't know, I just feel like, the Rays are also still developing a bunch of young guys too. I don't think they're as stacked as the other teams. And if their team basically just stays the same, which lost in the first round of the playoffs last year, and saw one of their key guys go out in Nelson Cruz, and their division is getting so much better, they're gonna get overpassed. Now, I don't think the Red Sox are quite good enough to overpass them, because it was pretty obvious that the Red Sox playoff streak was a little bit of luck. They were pretty good, but it's still a little bit of luck. But the Red Sox and Jays weren't any fluke, and if you just stay the same, then you're gonna get overpassed. And I know I'm probably not making any sense, but just trust me. They do got Wander Franco, who's gonna be a star. He had a little bit over an 800 OPS. He hit 288. He hit I'm pretty sure a little bit over 10 homers. He can still base. He's an amazing fielder. He's gonna be kind of like the next Fernando Tatis. He didn't play quite as a star, but he's pretty good. Randy Arozarena is a little bit inconsistent, but I still think he is really good. He shows up in the postseason, which most of this team doesn't. Brandon Lau is pretty good. Not that good, though. Not that good of a fielder. He is pretty good. Austin Meadows is a key fielder. He's really good, but again, not a star power name. He's one of the best fielders in the game, but still, his offensive production needs to get better. Jim Choi, I think he's a really, really good back the lineup guy. He's very solid whenever you watch him. He hits for power, and I think he's one of the best back of the lineup guys that you can get. Mike Zunino is very, very bad at offense, but his defensive catching is just so good. And this team got basically just staying the same. They could actually get better because of Sham Baez getting better, Corey Kluber signing. It's just, right now it's about developing their young players and hoping that their other guys are going out. But I'm going to have them finishing third because the Blue Jays and Yankees were chasing them barely worse. Plus, the Rays lost in the first round of the playoffs to the Red Sox. So we know that this team isn't very good in the postseason, and which proves that this team isn't as elite as we thought. They lost Nelson Cruz, and they aren't really changing, and I still think they're amazing. They still got a great bullpen, one of the best bullpens, because Fairbanks is really good, Weisler's pretty good, Spring's pretty good. They got a lot of good guys. Their starting pitching is one of the best, but they don't have the star power on offense, I don't think. Their core, a lot of their guys are getting older, and just that the other teams are overpassing them. I know I'm repeating myself a lot right now. In second place, I've got the New York Yankees. Now, I do not like the Yankees because my second favorite team is the Red Sox because family from there. I always do not fall for the Yankee hype. I knew last year they wouldn't be that good. I knew the year before they wouldn't be that good, and I wish they were bad, but their team is just too good. Their pitch at the beginning of the year they had a lot of flaws, but at the end of the year they fixed their bullpen. They fixed their starting pitching, and a lot of their guys are getting better. And in the offseason, they made key moves. Now, I'm going to name all the star power on offense. And I usually don't fall for star power and stuff like that. And fall for the hype here. Like, I didn't fall for the Phillies hype. I usually don't fall for the Yankees hype. But I'm going to name you some of the superstars that they have. Anthony Rizzo, Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, Joey Gallo, Josh Donaldson. That's like 6 players. Oh my gosh. And they still got solid contributors like Gleyber Torres. Even though he had a down year, his down year wasn't even like that bad. He still had a pretty good OBP. He still had a batting average in the 280s. Even though his OPS was terrible, only a 657. He's still a decent fielder. Not that good, but I think he's playable at second base. In the Yankees, they usually have a bunch of star players, and then past that, they're pretty bad. But I think Gleyber Torres, he needs to step up this year. It's going to be key. Aaron Hicks is a great center fielder, and I don't think he's that amazing, but he's still a guy that's fielding with a team with this much star power and risk and hitting and strengths and weaknesses and uncertainties and stuff. Aaron Hicks brings that nice utility role to them, if you want to say that. And at catcher, that's a big weakness because they traded away Gary Sanchez to the Twins, and they're gonna have Kyle, I'm not gonna try to pronounce his name, Higashiko. And even though he's a decent defensive catcher, he hasn't played enough for me to like him. His offense isn't that good. Very inexperienced. We saw how bad the Yankees can be with a bad catcher. Gary Sanchez was great at hitting, but not that good at catching. But this team has too much star power. Joey Gallo walks a lot, and he brings a lot of people hit home runs and are impatient on this roster. But Joey Gallo, he does hit a lot of home runs, doesn't get that much base hits, but his OBP is always very good. 869 OPS. He brings he's really, really good at fielding too. At left field, I think this outfield is one of the best. Aaron Hicks, Giancarlo Stanton, and Joey Gallo. Very, very good at fielding. But they also got power guys like Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge and Josh Donaldson. So, nice balance. And they got a utility guy in Aaron Hicks. And Gleyber Torres can be one. And Miguel Andujar and DJ LeMahieu, which I think is going to be key contributors to the bench. And they got a guy and they got a nice, two-way attack. Gleyber Torres, pretty good at running, decent fielder, and a solid contact hitter. This team's got so much balance, and with the star power, I think their hitting is going to be elite. Even though they have a weakness at catcher, and you can point to a bunch of this and that, and I usually don't look at star power. The star power on offense just outweighs everything that is bad. There's not that much. Their bench is pretty good too. Michael Andujar, DJ LeMahieu is pretty good. And yeah, they lost Gio Urshela and Gary Sanchez, but I don't think it's going to be the greatest deal in the world. In the pitching, I was going to put them lower because I thought their pitching was going to be same old. But after looking at the stats and stuff, I'm surprised this team got lost in the playoffs and stuff because their starting pitcher towards the end of the year was elite. Garrett Cole, after struggling after he got caught for cheating, had an elite end to the year. Luis Severino had a little bit of a down year, but he still had 2 top 10 Cy Young finalists in the 2 years prior. Very, very good. And I think he's going to return to his old self. And if not, he didn't have a terrible year. Still had almost a 3 ERA, 90s or something. He had a little bit over a 4 ERA. Jordan Montgomery has one of the best fastballs, and he did go 6-7, but he had a 3.87 ERA, a lot of strikeouts, pretty good WAR, and I forgot them. And Jordan Montgomery is still young, and he's a lefty in a rotation full of righties, and that's mostly over the years been a lot of righties, so I think he adds balance too. And James Talon, I thought he was really good with the Pirates, and he joined the Yankees, and he rebounded after a bunch of injury years, a 3.90 something ERA, a lot of strikeouts, and towards the end of the year, he had one of the best fastballs, and he was actually in one of the top 30 in the leagues in the least contact against his fastball. And he's their 4th best pitcher. Yeah, a guy like James Talon is their 4th best pitcher. That just shows how deep it is. Nestor Cortes is decent and young. I don't think he's not a great 5th best pitcher, but he's a decent one. And yeah, and the Yankees could always trade for somebody at the deadline if they don't have a good 5th pitcher. And even though they do have a flaw, they don't really have a good 5 pitcher. Their star power again outweighs it. And their bullpen is a little bit of a question because last year it cost them, but I think towards the end it was amazing. Aroldis Chapman should go back to form. Chad Green was amazing. Jonathan Laguista, whatever, had an amazing year. Clay Holmes was amazing. They signed Wandy Peralta. Michael King they signed. And they got a lot of reinforcements towards the trade deadline, which helped them make a run. And this team was already pretty decent, and I thought they were gonna be worse and stuff. Vision's getting so much better, and they usually pretty bad, but they got a lot of key additions. Josh Donaldson is a little bit flawed, but I think he's gonna add a lot of needed things to this team. And oh yeah, I forgot to mention that Isaiah Kiner-Falefa, yeah, he's gonna be their shortstop now. Yeah, and they added him. I just talked about them for so long, but I forgot to mention one of their key guys. He had a 271 batting average. He had a decent OVP. One of the best fielders, which again, this team's fielding in the past has been a problem, but he's going to bring stability at shortstop. And they got a great bench too, that the Red Sox do not have. And I just think, even though they have a little bit of flaws in the bullpen, they don't have a good fifth starting pitcher. Their catcher's a question mark. Their second baseman's a question mark. Late in their bench, it's like down the bench is kind of bad. The star power outweighs everything, and I think this team, first place, I am really confident on this one, and that is the Toronto Blue Jays. This team last year had 91 wins, and still missed the playoffs because they had a bad start, a lot of injuries, and their losses in one-run games, and their division was so good. And they missed the playoffs by one game. Pretty demoralizing. But the reason why they're so good is because they made a deep run towards the end of the season, which always means good the second year, because they had so much momentum, and they got Jose Barrios, who they signed to a extension. Hyun-Jin Ryu is gonna be pretty good. Alec Manoah emerged. Ross Stripling was pretty good, and they went out and they signed Kevin Gausman. Yeah, Kevin Gausman. And they signed another Japanese pitcher. I can't pronounce his name, but yeah, they got 6 or 7 really, really good pitchers now. And last year their pitching was a little bit of a question mark but it got better throughout the year. It was uncertain. It was kind of a question mark, but then they got Jose Barrios. Alec Manoah was pretty good down the stretch. So was Ross Stripling. Now they got Kevin Gausman and that other guy that I can't pronounce his name, who signed from Japan with the Blue Jays. Is very, very good. And now they got 7 really good quality starting pitchers. Last year this team got 91 wins despite an average pitching core, and the only reason why this team had 91 wins last year was 95% because of the hitting. The hitting was the most elite in this division by far, and we were all just like, get a bullpen, please, get some pitchers, which they did, but it wasn't good enough. Now their pitching is elite. Can you think of how scary last year's team would have been with amazing pitchers? Oh yeah, right. Last year's team is this year's team, but better on offense. They got the same elite offense, but now with elite pitching. That is scary. And their bullpen improved down the stretch, but it wasn't enough to get them out, but now they improved, and their momentum from the end of the season is going to be good. And their bullpen towards the end wasn't even that bad. It was just bad luck towards the end that got them out of the playoffs. And now their bullpen is going to be on for the full season. That's good. Amazing. Adam Simber was a key contributor. Trent Thornton was a key contributor. Trevor Richards had an elite season. Garcia was a pretty big addition. Mazia was pretty good. And even though they do have a couple guys that are not that good, and their closer's uncertain, with Romano is really good, but might not be good. Romano's a really good closer too, not that elite compared to a lot of the other AL East closers, but still really good. Their bullpen is still just a little bit above average, but compared to last year, it's better, and they just needed a decent enough bullpen to be good. And once after the trade deadline, they did just have a just good enough, and that's why they got a bunch of wins at the end. And we saw how good the Blue Jays can be with a decent starting pitching and a decent bullpen. Now their bullpen's a little bit better, and they have an elite starting pitching, and I think their bullpen's going to be just good enough. And let's talk about offense now. Now they did lose Marcus Semien. That was pretty much their only key loss. And they did lose Randall Grichuk. They replaced him with somebody that almost put up identical numbers, Romania Tapia, which I think he's going to be a good bench guy. But yeah, let's get into it. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., we all know that he put an MVP type year, and he's not even done. He's still amazing. And Kevin Biggio, we're gonna need him to bounce back. Even then, last year he wasn't even that bad. He got limited playing time because of how stacked they were in the infield. He only hit for 224. He walked a decent amount, but his fielding is still elite. And this team with elite fielding is amazing, and it's gonna get even better. I think that Biggio he might be better than Semien. He probably not, but he might, and I think he's a prime for bounce back. And even if he doesn't, he's still not that bad. With a team this stacked, you'd expect him like a lot of teams, even in the AL East, have a whole second, third short. Well, Biggio is solid, average, and we've seen in the past that he can do good. He was a pretty highly touted prospect, and he still provides speed. You kind of like the Royals, like speed, fielding, and even if he doesn't bounce back offensively, all he needs to do is hit like a maybe around 240 or whatever, and then he's a solid player because of his speed and fielding and everything that he has. And at catcher, Danley Jansen, he was terrible on offense, only had like a 220 or a 2 or 1 at batting average, which is why I think Alejandro Kirk is going to be the starter, even though Jansen's just amazing at catcher. I think Kirk's hitting ability, and he's shown in the past that he can be a great catcher. I think he's going to be this opening day catcher, which is a little bit of uncertainty. I'm going through a little bit of their weaknesses first, as you can say, except for Vladimir Guerrero. He's amazing. But yeah, even those weaknesses that I just said aren't really weaknesses. Kevin Biggio's not that bad, and Alejandro Kirk, if he's not good, they can just summon Danny Jansen. If he's not good, they can summon Reese McGuire. They got so much depth, and even their weaknesses are bad, but are good. But yeah, George Springer, he's going to be back for a full year, which is why I think, another reason why I think this team is going to be first and better than last year, 91 wins. Because George Springer only played 78 games, but he had one of the best OPSs in the league, and he had a 278 batting average. He still managed to get a decent amount of home runs, over 15 of them, or 20. Even though he only played 78 games. Springer's going to be back. And Bo Bichette, he's elite. He's one of the top shortstops in the game. He had a 298 batting average, a 343 OBP, a 44 slugging, and an 828 OPS. OPS is slugging percentage plus on-base percentage, and that was not in the starting lineup. Think of how good those numbers could have been if he was really good. And that was due to limited playing time, too, because he also had to shift around with other players, too. Yeah, and Bo Bichette is probably the best defensive shortstop in this division. He is so good. He had a 5.9 WAR, and just that had to share a little bit of playing time. Not much he had to share, but a little bit. Very, very good, and that's a lot of elite players I just named. Vladimir Guerrero, George Springer, and Bo Bichette. That's only 3 players, right? Only not that good. Plus, Bo Bichette is one of the best and fastest players in this division, too, and a team leader, and he's still young. It has 29 homers. Yeah, Bo Bichette. I almost forgot. I thought he was just a utility guy at first and stuff. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, a player that, like, is good, that's fast, good at fielding, had a lot of hits, good OPS. Do you think of them as he lacks power? No, he had 29 homers last year. And 25 stolen bases, and he's still not talked about. He's criminally underrated. I know people respect him, but he's still underrated. And yeah, I just named a lot of elite players. That's surely the end, right? Wrong. Teoscar Hernandez, all-star last year, had an 870 OPS. One of the highest, probably like the 4th highest on this team. Yeah, and a lot of people forget about him still. I don't know why. He had a 346 OBP, which means that he doesn't walk that much, but he still walks a decent amount. 296 batting average, and 32 homers. And he's forgotten. I do not know why. People remember George Springer more than him, which George Springer is really good, but he's not that good. He's not that good compared to, Vladimir Guerrero, but let me rephrase that. George Springer is still really good, but not as good as Teoscar. And that's another elite player, but yeah, Luis Gurriel. He didn't have as much at-bats and playing time, due to Marcus Semien and a lot of players being there. But yeah, Luis Gurriel is still there. He had a 276 batting average, only a 319 OBP, and only a 785 OPS. He did have 21 homers. He's an amazing fielder. He's decently fast. And yeah, even though like he's not as elite, he's still a very, very, very solid guy, and a guy that you'd want to put in your lineup. Very solid utility guy. Not utility, but solid fielder. I'd almost put him elite. He's done really, really good this spring training too. And 785 OPS is still nothing to scoff at. Still nothing to scoff at. He could still be one of the top hitters, probably not because his team is so stacked. Also, I might make a video on this guy. He's one of the most underrated players. His name is Santiago Espinal. My magazine that I read almost had him like on the bench and stuff, and after the Matt Chapman trade, which I'm going to talk about in a sec. Espinal hit 311 last year. He only played in 92 games, but he still hit 311 batting average. 376 OBP, which is one of the highest. 405 slugging and a 781 OPS. yeah, his slugging isn't that good. But yeah, OPS plus 114, and he surprisingly, even in not that much playing time and stuff, he had the 8th best WAR on this team and a 2.5 WAR. And he still had 17 RBIs, and I think he's very good bench or starting caliber player. He's really good. And Matt Chapman, we all know him as an amazing, just amazing defensive guy. Yes. And hopefully he bounces back from his bad hitting campaign, which I think he will. Amazing. And I just think this team is just so talented. Like, all those, I'm probably missing a couple offseason transactions too. This team just goes on and on and on and on and on and on, kind of like me talking in this video. But yeah. But yeah, now to the division that I know most about, the AL Central. And this division, I am a Tigers fan, so I'm gonna be biased, but yeah, this division isn't that good, but their 5th place team isn't that bad, but it's still in a rebuild. It's the Kansas City Royals. And this team, I think, is going to be better. They could get 80 wins, maybe. But yeah, their starting pitching is what I think is going to hurt them the most. Mike Minor, he was supposed to be their top guy, and he's still supposed to be their ace. He's had a 5.05 ERA. Yeah, 5.05. He was supposed to be their big trade addition. He's 33. He's only getting worse. I like Chris Bobbick or Bubik or whatever you want to call him. He had a 4.43 ERA, and this is one of the best defensive players we're talking about. He's young. I think he's going to get better. He's pretty good, and I think he's going to get better. But still not that good. Brad Keller, he had a pretty bad ERA. I think I like Brady Singer as a prospect, but he's not ready. Their pitching just needs a lot of work. And their bullpen's decent. Scott Barlow's not that bad. Tapia's okay. Hernandez had a solid year, but their pitching is going to be horrendous. But they have an amazing defensive core. Whit Merrifield is really, really good. Nick Lopez, they're both, according to Baseball Reference, they're both one of the top 2 infield prospects in baseball. Andrew Benintendi, towards the end of the year, had a bounce back. He had a 7.66 OPS, but a 2.76 batting average, 17 homers. Taylor's probably one of the best center fielders. Even though his OPS was kind of bad at a 6.53, he was one of the best defensive players. It was still good enough. Even with his poor offensive play to get him the 5th best WAR on this team, 2.5. Pretty good. Whit Merrifield, of course, is amazing. 2.77 batting average, 3.17 OBP. Carlos Santana is I don't really like him that much. Mondesi could be in the starting lineup. This team has a lot of speed and hitting, but again, this team's pitching is pretty bad. I almost forgot to talk about Salvador Perez. We all know that he's an all-star. But yeah, this team, they're not good enough offensively, but they're very fast, very good at fielding. Starting pitching is going to struggle though, and I think that they're a little bit worse than the 4th seed, but I like how their rebuild's going. They got some prospects. I just gotta hope that player development gets a little better. 4th place, I've got the Cleveland Guardians now. I almost called them the Indians. Yeah, I don't really like the name change, but yeah, I think this team is so mediocre. Plus, I think their things are inflated because before the trade deadline, we weren't that bad, but then they shipped off some pieces. Plus, some of their players regressed, plus injury. But they still had a pretty easy schedule, and because of their record before the trade deadline and how bad they were after, I think their record's a little bit inflated there, 80 and 82. And I think this team is probably going to get worse. But yeah, this team I still think is a little bit better than the Royals. Jose Ramirez is still elite, 893 OPS, 355 OVP, 266 batting average, 36 homers, amazing. Rosario I think is a bit overrated. He only has his is a bit overrated. He has a 282 batting average, but he only has a 731 OBP. He's a pretty good shortstop, decent, but not that good. I don't really think he should be a guy that you're getting talked about. Bradley Zimmer is getting worse. I really like Framber Reyes. He had 30 homers, and he had an 846 OPS despite his 324 OBP. It's because he's a power hitter. He's the definition of a power hitter. 522 slugging percentage. That's one of the best. 127 OPS plus. That's how much of a power hitter he is. He only has a 254 batting average and a 324 OBP, but his OPS is an 846 just because of his power. Naylor's decent. Shaw's pretty good. He has a 739 OPS, which is not that good, but he has a 362 OBP, walks a lot, 285 batting average. He only has 2 homers though, which, watch out for that. And yeah, but I don't think this hitting is that good. They have 3 really good pitchers in that core, and I think their pitching runs pretty deep, but it's not good enough to consider them a playoff contender. So yeah, I think this team's gonna finish 4th. In 3rd place, I've got the Minnesota Twins. Now, you could call me biased because I am a Tigers fan, but I do think the Twins are good. They got star power, but not enough star power to overtake their negatives. They're not like the Yankees. And they got Carlos Correa, who's probably the best shortstop in the league, maybe, besides Fernando Tatis. And they do have Jorge Polanco, who's very underrated just because he plays for the Twins. He had an 826 OPS with a 125 OPS plus, and the number 1 WAR in the team, a 4.9 WAR, and 269 batting average with 33 home runs. How is he unnoticed? And he is a great fielder, amazing. And yeah, they did lose Josh Donaldson, which is going to be a major blow. He did have an 827 OPS, 26 homers, 352 OBP, which is, again, how good the Yankees are going to be. But they did have a sort of decent replacement with Gio Urshela. He's pretty good at the stats put up for him right now, but he was pretty decent. He was a pretty solid bench candidate. He's probably not a starter, but I do think he's a bit of a downgrade, but he's a pretty good everyday starting player. Byron Buxton, hopefully he bounces back. He's very, very good. He only played for like 20-something games. He played for exactly 61 games, and he had a 1,000.5 OPS, or 1.005. Yeah, that's really, really good. He had a 306 batting average, and he had 19 home runs before he got injured. Hopefully he stays healthy. They got 2 stars, 3 actually. Polanco, Correa, and Buxton, all great at fielding too. And yeah, they still got Miguel Sano. He's regressing, of course. He only had a 778 OPS, but he still got 30 homers. His slugging percentage is still monstrous, 4.466. Still amazing, not star level, but it's okay, I guess. They got Gary Sanchez, who I think is actually kind of a downgrade from Mitch Garver. Mitch Garver was a way better hitter, and even though Gary Sanchez does have home runs and stuff, he's a terrible defender, just terrible. And I don't think he's going to be that good. Nick Gordon, he was pretty decent. He had a 647 OPS, but again, not what you call great material. And they got a couple stars, but again, not great hitting. Their pitching does need some work. Their best pitcher is Sonny Gray, who's solid, hit out a little bit at a 4.02 ERA, which that was inflated. But that shouldn't be your best guy, and the rest of them are just average at best. Because Michael Pineda is gone, Jose Barrios is gone, J.A. Happ is gone, Tyler Duffy is gone, I think. Dylan Bundy was pretty okay, he was pretty decent, but he shouldn't be your second best pitcher. Again, and they have a couple stars and stuff, which is why I think they're going to be decent, and they got decent player development, they got some prospects coming up, but I don't think they're that like good top to bottom, and they're going to be an amazing defensive team that can score a lot of runs, because hopefully Byron Buxton is healthy, because it gets carried by their star power. But again, they got 5 or 6 really good guys, but the rest of them are pretty bad. They don't have a bench, they don't have that good starting pitching. Their bullpen's actually pretty decent. They actually got a lot of good bullpen guys. Traylon Rogers, Matt Shoemaker, Ralph Garza, a lot of good players, but again, not good enough. And I think in a weak AL Central, they're going to finish third, probably not playoff bound. Seconds, I got my Detroit Tigers. You could say that I'm biased, but I actually do think that this team is going to contend. They're going to miss the playoffs barely, but I do think that their team is just solid. They don't have a lot of star power, which I do value star power a little bit, not that much, but a little bit. They have Javi Baez, who struck out a lot, but still with 31 homers, 265, amazing WAR, had the over 3 WAR, and he had 31 homers. Hopefully he gets better, but again, their roster isn't amazing, but a lot of solid, good players, top to bottom. Like Jonathan Scope, I think he's very underrated. He only had a 7.55 OPS, but a 278 batting average, 22 home runs, signed a little bit of a contract extension, 2 years. He had a very, very bad April, which is why his numbers are inflated. And he gets on base, he hits home runs, he's an okay fielder, second and first baseman. And I think he embodies, on a really good World Series team, he'd be like a 5th or 6th batter. He'd be like, you mentioned all the stars, and it's like, oh yeah, they have Jonathan Scope as a good guy. And I think he's very, very, very good. Akil Bazu is my favorite player, man. He got off to a monstrous start, then he cooled off, and then he got better again. He made adjustments, which shows growth. He's very, very, very versatile. He can play center, left, right. He's very, very fast. He's got a great eye. He's a 330 OBP and a 259 batting average, which shows how much he walks. He's got 18 stolen bases. He had 13 homers, and this was a Rule 5 draft pick who hasn't played in 3 years. He's obviously going to improve a 7.66 OPS. He improved that out of nowhere. Robbie Grossman is one of the most underrated players in the league. He had a 357 OBP. Why is this important? Because he had a 239 batting average. He was 3rd in the league in walks with 98. And even though he might not profile as a speed guy, he still had 20 stolen bases. Yeah, 20. And he's pretty good in left field, right field. Harold Castro is a very, very good bench guy. Has pretty good batting averages. Tucker Barnhart's one of the best defensive catchers in the league. Had a 247 batting average, one of the best WARs. And I think he's going to be very, very key, because the only reason why he got traded to the Reds is because they added Tyler Stevenson, and he's going to be very, very keen guiding these young players. Eric Haas, he was amazing last year. He had a 231 batting average, a 286 OBP, 745 OPS, but he did have 22 home runs, and this was towards the end of the season. He had 61 RBIs, and this was only in like 98 games. He emerged onto the scene. Riley Green, hopefully he's going to get called up. He's one of the top prospects in the game. He's shown great promise in spring training, the same as Spencer Torkelson, one of the top prospects in the game. And they got a lot of depth at catcher too. Justin Garneau, Tucker Barnhart, and Eric Haas. Jeimer Candelario solidified himself as an everyday third baseman of the future, even though they are kind of stacked at that position. He did 795 OPS, which isn't that good, but it's not that bad. 351 OBP, and a 271 batting average. That is really good. 65 walks. Yeah, and he had the most doubles in the league, and he's a great third baseman, very underrated. Miguel Cabrera is still there for veteran leadership. And yeah, but the main thing is that they're going to need their pitching to do good. Eduardo Rodriguez had one of the most inflated ERAs in the league, but he still struck out a lot of players. He has an amazing WAR. Casey Mize was one of the top prospects in the Tigers farm system for a lot of years, and we put all of our hopes and dreams into him. And he struggled at first, but then he did amazing. He had a 3.71 ERA, a lot of strikeouts, but an amazing WAR. He should be our ace of the future. He had 118 strikeouts, and he's still improving. He's going to be amazing. I'm confident that he's going to be good. Tariq Skubal's numbers is inflated. because he had a 4.34 ERA. It's because he started out the year with like a 6.34 ERA, something like that. He was terrible at the beginning, then he was amazing at the end. He's got a lot of great stuff. His fastball is monstrous. His control's getting better. Everything's getting better. Plus, he's 24. I think he's gonna, improved. And as long as he keeps developing, he's shown promise in spring training as well. He's gonna get better. He's gonna better catcher now. And Matt Manning, he's been another one of the top prospects, but he's very young. He's 23, and he struggled a bit last year, but he made adjustments, and the talent's clearly there. He added a curveball. His fastball's one of the fastest, and as long as he performs, and we got Michael Pineda, a solid fifth option, and a lot of depth at pitching, and which is why over the Twins. We have a lot of solid guys, not a lot of star power, but a lot of solid guys. Kyle Funko is one of the best relievers. Soto's in the All-Star. Cisneros probably one of the best setup guys. Michael Fulmer moved from starter to bullpen. He was amazing. So yeah, I think they're going to finish second. First place, we obviously got the White Sox. The White Sox are very, very good. They did lose Carlos Rondon, but they're still going to be contenders. I don't think they're going to be good enough for the playoff contention, but they still got prospects coming up. Eloy Jimenez is back. Jose Abreu is back. Yasmani Grandal is back. Mercedes is back. Adam Eaton's back. Luis Roberts is back. Andrew Vaughn is back. Yohan Moncada is back. Timmy Anderson's back. They got a lot of players back. And their young core is improving. Just like the Tigers, their young core is improving. And they got star power, but not enough star power to compete with the big boys, but I think they can easily win the division because they got all their players back. And they're kind of like the Rays, where the Rays are still really good. I think they're by a pretty wide margin better than the White Sox, but the White Sox in this division, I think, is a good team returning, and their young team getting better. Yeah, they're definitely going to make the playoffs and then probably get swept again. But yeah, very, very good. I'm not going to spend too much time because it's pretty obvious that they're going to win it all. They did lose Carlos Rondon, but they still got Dylan Cease back, still got Michael Kopech, still got Garrett Crochet, still got Dallas Keuchel, still got Dylan Cease, still got Lance Lynn, which they're not amazing, but they're still really good. Lance Lynn had a 2.69 ERA and 31 starts. That is amazing. 1.070 whip. Cease or Scythe was us had a 3.91 ERA. Luis Galito had a 3.53 ERA. Liam Hendricks is an amazing bullpen guy. Michael Kopech's an amazing bullpen guy. And Lopez is an amazing bullpen guy. Their bullpen's one of the best, which is why I think they're going to easily blow out anybody. The Twins' star power can't compete because the White Sox are even better. The Tigers don't have enough bullpen and pitching, even though they're still pretty good, to get the White Sox, and they're going to easily win the AL Central.